what's going on, guys? John and Jimmy here, checking in for United View, the match reaction of the game. Luton Town versus Manchester United. The game has ended 2-1 to Manchester United, and I swear, I feel like I just walked out of like the most anxious, most terrifying movies, and I don't feel good at all.
Yeah, I mean,
we should be feeling good.
We don't have to go to the movie theater because that was a thriller.
That was a horror movie.
That was,
it was a horror movie. I mean, we should walk out feeling great, but it was just one of those games where it just kept us on the edge of our seats for the worst, most poopiest reasons possible. But overall, we'll talk about it as we go along. But at the end of the day, a win is a win, and it is a statement victory, and we should be happy. It just feels like we worked so hard to get to that moment.
I would have been much happier if we were in cruise control.
Yes.
If we got the 2-1, and from the first minute to the last minute, we just were in control. But that was not the case today, was it?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't, and I feel like Manchester United made the game a lot more difficult than it should have been, quite honestly. Because although Luton Town provided the level of industry and provided the high tempo that they are usually known for, especially this season. We actually responded to that very well. Lots of people might be questioning Erik ten Hag and what was this and what was that. No, we provided Erik ten Hag's job is to help create the chances. He provides it. And he provided the tactical output by allowing the players to be able to hit on the break. How many chances have we had in front of goal, in front of Kaminsky, the Luton Town keeper, where we should have buried at least one or two of those 4 or 5 chances we created? So at the end of the day, we definitely could have made things a lot more easier. But again, it's not an easy place to come to, and it was a game we had to dig deep.
Yeah,
dig deep,
absolutely deep,
and we did dig deep. I'm so tired. My tongue is twisted. We dug deep. But let's go back to talking about how the game sort of unfolded. I know you sort of missed a bit of the first half, but I thought Manchester United were relatively in cruise control in the first opening 15 minutes. Of course, the 2 goals from Rasmus Hojlund. What a way to start for Rasmus.
Absolutely.
I honestly thought this was going to be a floodgates opening. I thought it was going to be a 5-0 for Manchester United.
That's what a lot of people were saying. Once Rasmus got those 2 goals, we thought it'd be absolute cruise control. But then, Luton Town 14th minute got a goal back, and I think ever since then, Luton Town were just knocking at the door of United.
I thought first half there was a little bit more control from Manchester United, but there were moments in that first half as well, especially towards the latter half of that first half, where Luton Town were completely just bum rushing us, and we were just in a moment where we had to come up with some sort of way to respond from a composure perspective. And I thought in the first half, we actually did relatively look composed, especially from the likes of Casemiro and Mmainoo, who both were having a phenomenal game. Casemiro, in the opening 15 minutes, he was cutting out passes, he was dictating tempo, he was closing down things very well. This first touch passing to try and keep the game as direct as possible, it looked so good from Casemiro. But that moment in that second half of the first half, rather, the latter half, where he got booked, and then there was that challenge where he could have gotten booked again.
Yeah.
He was fuming.
Yeah, that was scary.
The camera wasn't showing who he was fuming at. It could have been Bruno. It could have been Mmainoo. I don't know who it was. If you guys know, get in the comments and let us know. But Casemiro was fuming.
Yeah.
And if you might think he had every right to feel fuming, the right to be fuming, or maybe not, but nonetheless, that sort of that moment encapsulated Manchester United's position
for the rest of the game.
Yeah, we looked like we were a little bit head gone. I mean, we did calm down to a relative extent, but overall, we just looked like we were a little bit lost, a little bit confused. Yeah, and that was a bit troubling and a bit concerning for us.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this game also just encapsulates what our season was like, because they were the game of 2 different halves. We had, like you said, Casemiro almost potentially getting a red card, thankfully not getting called for that foul. We had Luke Shaw coming off late into the first half, again with what seems to be a niggling injury to Luke Shaw, with Victor Lindelof coming in, and then we had Harry Maguire coming out as well in the second half, with Johnny Evans coming in. Undoubtedly Johnny Evans coming in and doing a great shift in that second half, but you could see what we were missing with Casemiro and with Luke Shaw both out. We had no real defensive structure. Our midfield seemed to be very wide open, and our attacking third in that second half just wasn't connecting. We, like you said, we had chances, but we seemed to be lacking the decision making of what we needed to do in that final third.
Yeah, there were so many moments that we just looked like we weren't talking to each other. There was a moment in the in the final third where Rasmus Hojlund won the ball, the first touch, and there was a Luton defender all over him, and Scott McTominay came to make the assisting run, and then and we saw Rasmus sort of being wrestled. Yeah. So he actually shielded the ball in no man's land, just letting somebody to come and pick it up. Yeah. But Scott just kind of just stood there and watched him. Yeah. Like, that's the communication and the lacking awareness. There was another moment where in the defensive area where it was like Rashi, it was like maybe another defender, Victor. There's 3 people on one Luton player, and they were touch tight on the edge of the line. Like, literally this is the boundary. And there was a Luton player. There's a Luton player with 3 Man United players just surrounding him.
Just standing there though.
They had him locked in. One needs to step. If it's 3, at least one needs to step, right? And there's just a lacking communication or lacking authority. I don't know what's going on, but somebody needs to tell him, step. There's got to be a leader. Step. Get in there. Maybe they were screaming that on the pitch and we couldn't hear it.
Yeah.
But they were all just kind of like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the kind of misunderstanding, miscommunication, and frustration that was setting in. And it was frustrating overall. And you mentioned the injuries, Jimmy. Talk to me a little bit about the injuries.
I mean, Luke Shaw, like we said, coming off late. I think it was really late into that first half. You could see it. Victor Lindelof, I love him. He's a great player on his day, but he cannot do what Luke Shaw does. He doesn't overlap. He can't overlap. He can't overlap. He can't put in a whipped cross in for Hojlund, for Garnacho, Bruno, anyone in the box. And his defending while he's on the left side just is, I hate to say it, subpar, if I have to say anything, because we saw the whole second half, he was getting rinsed. He was getting just blown by the Luton attack. And luckily, we didn't get conceded on in that second half, but with Luke Shaw out, and we know we have a long-term injury with Lisandro Martinez, we are again in a position where we can't rely on players that we want to rely on.
Yeah, and this is why I'm concerned, because I wanted to sit here and talk about a race for the top 4, and I want to do all that. And while this performance puts us in a much more stronger position to do so, the next game worries me, because now we're losing players again.
Yeah,
and we're back to almost feeling like back to square one. And I don't want to be like a mood killer, but it definitely gives us a cause for concern considering what we've seen so far this season when the injured players are gone.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know Harry Maguire also taking off in the second half for what seems to be a precautionary sub as well. So who do we have in our defense now? We don't have Luke Shaw. We don't have Lisandro Martinez. And we don't seem to have Harry Maguire now. So now we're relying on Johnny Evans. We're relying on Lindelof to play in the left back. We're relying on Rafael Varane, who we know could be injury prone. Yeah. So we are in a situation where, yes, we won. We won 2-1 today. But we still have to think about the rest of this season because we're chasing that top 4. You know, we can talk about all the negatives, but there were a lot of positives in that game as well. That second half, we saw it with Kobe Mainoo. He was just running that show all half. Like I said this before, he makes simple things great, but he makes hard things look simple as well.
Yeah, and you know me when it comes to Kobe Mainoo. I love players that make players that make football look easy. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Makes it look like, oh, maybe I can do that. When you know clear damn well there's no way on God's green earth you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, he had 3 players coming straight into him, and he just took one touch feint and he went. I mean, I don't know how he does it, and I don't know how he's so young and doing it, but what a gem. That,
to me right there, Kobe Mainoo is the gem that we found that we should be thanking the footballing gods for. Kobe Mainoo is the saving grace in what could be a great what could be a relief of a season or a disappointing season.
Right.
I just think Kobe Mainoo is just so phenomenal. My favorite player this season has been Kobe Mainoo and Rasmus, and absolutely. Rightly so. Those two players, incredible today.
I mean, we can't talk about Kobe without talking about Rasmus because he is the reason why we won today. 2 goals in the first 10 minutes. He is on a hot streak of hot streaks right now for United. What are your thoughts on how you thought Rasmus has been doing since his first goal in December?
You know how I feel about Rasmus. You know where we've been on that. You know I've been backing his team for a long time.
Absolutely.
And I knew that this was going to happen because once the team cohesion started really like sort of taking shape, I knew Rasmus was going to be at the end of those goals, and I knew he was going to score. And today you saw the industry, you saw the level of comfort, but as soon as you see the team starting to look disjointed, you see Rasmus not being available. I mean, there was that opportunity where he should have also maybe gotten a goal again in front of the keeper 1v1.
Yeah.
But again, my point is, as when the team doesn't look good, Rasmus doesn't score.
Yeah.
But when the team looks phenomenal, Rasmus is on the end of it.
Yeah, which
because it
makes
seems
sense.
like exactly. It seems like if everybody's doing their job, we're scoring.
Yeah,
and it's so simple from an ideological standpoint to talk like that. But it's exactly that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you can't think about it too complicated. It's just Rasmus has been doing his job to perfection. Yeah. Connecting, link up play, being the hold up man, making the runs. You see the breaks. Imagine wrestling a full grown man in the Premier League who are all physical specimens. They're all physical beasts in the toughest league in the world. Yeah. Right? Imagine wrestling them consistently and then having to track back and then on the break full sprint. consistently.
Yeah.
At a young age for Rasmus, he's doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of the life of a striker is no matter how good of a striker you are, no matter how world class you are, you'll still get blamed if you don't get the goals, even if the team around you isn't playing well. And that's why I feel so happy right now for Rasmus, because he's getting the goals. He's putting us on his back.
Yeah, you tell him about Rasmus.
He's putting our team on his back, and he's getting us points right now. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Honestly,
what more?
this is how it should be.
This is how it is right now.
Yeah,
this is not how it should be. This is how it is.
We need to keep this here, and I need to get a Cubby shirt.
Absolutely,
That's what we need.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Outside of that, though, you know, if there's one last thing we have to talk about, we have to talk about our inconsistencies in front of goal. We saw Bruno, we saw Garnacho, both with almost identical chances in front of goal, trying to get past the goalie. What do you think we have to do better in those situations?
Honestly, I think it's just a bad day. If I'm being completely honest, it just feels
bad day at the office.
A very bad day at the office. And I know Bruno's frustrated. I know Garnacho's frustrated. They're probably in that dressing room right now fuming at themselves. Like, this is a win. We were talking about it before. Yeah. But it feels like a loss. And for those players, it probably feels like even a bigger loss, considering the fact that they probably could have gotten another goal, another assist. Yeah. It just probably was a bad day at the office. And we got away thanks to a defensive masterclass from the likes of Johnny Evans, Rafael Varane and Diogo and them, man. But it's just like there was another one. Remember when Diogo he made that run in between the channels, and the long ball came from Andre, I believe, and he made that run, and he couldn't look. We were debating.
We don't know if he just misplaced the pass or misplaced the touch, or if the goalkeeper came on.
My thought process is when Diogo made that run, he was keeping an eye on that ball as it came down, and then as soon as he took the first touch, he didn't anticipate the distance between himself and the keeper, and the keeper came and closed down the space a lot quicker, and I think that almost sort of caught Diogo off guard, and I think that was the reason why he sort of waffled the touch.
I mean, in my perspective, you're right in the sense that I think he was looking at the ball, but I think he had enough time after he touched the ball down to see where the goalie is, because he saw him, took a touch left, and the goalkeeper kept coming, but then he touched it straight into the path of the goalie. I understand what you're saying with him in regards to, maybe the goalie came too fast and he didn't expect it.
Right.
But at a player of that level with that much time on the ball, I think he could have done a lot better there.
Yeah, and that's been the story of today's game.
Yeah.
Like the inconsistency. I think the story of this season has been inconsistencies because of injuries, but that performance in itself, I think it's just a bad day at the office, and I really feel like the players are probably going to be fuming at themselves.
Of course, because we know Bruno and we know Garnacho on their day probably get those goals.
Yeah.
But, with the defensive inconsistencies and with how, unlucky we were, I'm not mad at it.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at it.
The last thing maybe we just want to wrap up on is people were really concerned about Bruno's performance today.
Yeah.
Bruno just has not been sharp this year. And it's sort of weird because his performance sort of goes hand in hand with Marcus. When Marcus is flying, Bruno was flying.
Yeah.
And now Marcus is not flying and Bruno's not flying.
Yeah.
And I just feel like Bruno just looks a little jaded. He looks a little tired.
Yeah.
And I've been on the United View many a time saying that Mason Mount was the signing for the future. I told everybody then, you guys were like, what are you talking about? Why would Mason Mount replace Bruno Fernandez? I said Bruno Fernandez's style of a high octane, high energy, high work rate, you can't keep that up on a consistent basis. Yeah. And we have to be ready to replace somebody as important as Bruno.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, do you think Bruno, let's say Mason Mount comes back right now. Do you think Bruno Fernandez should be pulled out of the 11 and Mason Mount comes right in?
You see, this is where it gets difficult because he is, at the end of the day, our most creative player.
I agree.
1, and 2, he is our captain.
I agree.
So I personally think it's a bad message to the team if we pull him straight off. Because I know on his day, he is a great player.
I agree.
But I don't think we should, look at Bruno's performances this season and say he's gone down. He's going downhill. We should replace him. Yeah. Because I feel like, his performances do coincide with, like you said, Rashford. With our defense, when we have a ball playing center back like Lisandro Martinez, Bruno is a lot more free to do what he wants. But these days, he has to come all the way down. He has to try to defend. He's running so much. And I think it's unfair as fans to put all that blame on Bruno.
100%.
And I think with Mason Mount coming in, it'll give maybe some more breathing room for Bruno to be able to do what he wants. If we put Mason Mount, as a double pivot with him up top, or maybe put him on the wing and we see what he does there. But I think at this moment in time, I don't think it's a good idea to just outright replace him with Mason Mount right now.
Well said, my broski.
Absolutely.
Because, look, I agree. Bruno Fernandez, he might not be having a good season. He might not be, having a good game, but he is still our most creative outlet, and he's having to do a lot of things that he didn't need to do.
Yeah.
And maybe that argument with Casemiro that he had, whether it's justified or not, it just goes to show that our midfield is doing more than what we initially intended from Erik ten Hag's strategic standpoint. So I don't think dropping him is the right call for sure.
Yeah.
But you're spot on. I think Mason Mount returning will definitely provide a little bit more breathing room. And if Erik ten Hag can get the things right, then Mason Mount maybe could eventually be the successor to Bruno in years to come. But not right now. Bruno's still the most important player for us.
Absolutely. And I mean, we have to say this as well. Everyone's having a bad season. It's not just Bruno.
Yeah, it's just been a mix up of just a whole bunch of ups and downs. But for me, let's just wrap it up, Jimmy. My man of the match, I'm gonna have to give it to my guy Rasmus. It was a toss up between Rasmus and Kobe for me. I'm going Rasmus.
I mean, if you're gonna ask me that question, I mean, I think we have an answer already.
Rasmus, my G.
RG. Oh, our.
No,
G.
my G.
My
love for Rasmus is greater than your love for Rasmus.
My man of the match is Kobe.
Thank you guys for tuning in, guys. What were your thoughts on the game? Get in the comments and let us know. And if you guys are new to the channel, please consider subscribing to the United View. If you guys enjoyed our comments and our takes today, please consider checking us out on our channel and subscribing to us as well. The links are in the description below. Thank you guys so much. Be happy, be healthy, take care of your loved ones, and we will see you next time. Peace.